Even as I'm saying this, I feel like Archangel Raphael coming in like.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'm feeling someone here, like who's coming through. What
Yeah. Hi, Archangel
Hi,
Raphael.
welcome to this
So
episode.
today we have a guest speaker. His name is Archangel Raphael. Hello and welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We're your hosts, Cristina
And Luisa.
And today we're diving into a conversation all about chakras, your aura, connection, and supporting yourself energetically.
Super interesting episode. Let's dive in. There's like a million things that make up a person when you think about it, and it's so complex.
Yes, it is so complex. And I feel like that's where the term multidimensional being comes in, and understanding that we are multidimensional, that there are all these different aspects of ourselves that need to be taken care of, not just physically, which I think it's the easiest to comprehend physical because we see it, we feel it,
Right.
like it's right there,
Yeah.
But to also understand that there's this energetic component that is not talked about. I mean, if you think about it, when did you first learn about energy, or when did you begin to like understand that there's chakras? Because I'm sure you weren't taught about that in school, or like, you know what I mean?
Not in school, but again, I was raised in a weird environment where very early on I was aware of chakra. I didn't necessarily understand it, but I was very much aware. And again, the uncle that would go just in passing, like, oh, your crown chakra is really open, like that's great. Or mom, like, oh, your aura is looking so like this today. So it was just like, yeah, sure.
That's so cool.
And I could even see it like on people at one point. I could like physically see it around people if I really focused and tried. So it was just a thing. I didn't understand it, but I was aware of it very, very early on. And then also part of it was just seeing people when they're going through something and something's going to happen to them, and just seeing them in different shades and colors. And this is something that was really traumatizing. But we had a neighbor, and he was very sick. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was kind of a dear friend of the family. But myself, like when I came back from school, I went up to their apartment and we would play. And so there was this connection, and then starting to see like a green filter.
Whoa.
And then of course that when you see green, there's no going back. That's when the person's definitely going to pass away. And that I have no idea what that means. My mom, I don't think I've ever seen that again necessarily, because again, it was super scary, I guess. But that's one of my mom's gifts, actually. And she can see almost like an X-ray version of the person, and she'll describe like bright blue or green, or like just seeing people through these weird filters where she's seeing energy, and then that'll tell her something about
that's so
them.
Cool.
Yeah. And interpreting that and learn through a lifetime of experiences, just learning to tell what that means. But physically seeing energy is something that either I've been able to do, I've heard about, and of course with just my house, just growing up with my mom, and we've been always very open and about that. So yeah, I've always kind of been aware.
That's amazing. That is so, so cool. I definitely had I had a different experience where I was not aware at all. And it was, I shared the story already before of how one of my first kind of introductions to energy was chakras. And then I was obsessed with it, reading books about chakras, understanding going to the chakra workshop, like all of that. But I think that once I realized that there was energy and that there were chakras and this was all a whole thing, like it really fascinated me. I've always been a person who, wanted to understand how things work and like maybe make sense of things, but also just have an awareness of the bigger picture, like how it all fits together kind of a thing, And so I feel like when I started to learn about energy and chakras and all that, that it started to make more sense to me. Like it just like made sense. I feel like where it's like, oh yeah, of course we are energy beings, and of course we have these energy centers, and of course like, oh okay, now I understand, kind of a thing, you know. And then I feel like with my work specifically as an angelic intuitive and as a spiritual teacher, as a healer, like as I stepped into that part of my calling, I feel like the work with chakras just naturally blended in with everything else. Like I didn't
Right.
feel like it was a separate kind of like, okay, this is the chakra stuff and this is the angels, and like how,
Yeah.
you know, it just naturally started to all come together.
It's just the foundation of everything, the energy and that energetic body or system. Again, there's so many layers to us, but even for the healer, like that's just the very first step.
Yeah.
Like this is angel work 101 or spirituality 101. Like this is get to know yourself and
Yeah.
your energy and how you work. And but still to this day I don't really have like a thorough understanding of why and what do they do
Right.
exactly, and what just that I've heard of people talking about other chakras that are not like a
Yeah.
pink
Not,
one and then a one above, and
yeah.
like yeah, there's so many things about that we don't know, but just the basic like colors and kind of a sense, a general sense around what each one of them represent.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And I do feel like with chakras, thinking about energy centers, it's definitely a whole rabbit hole in and of itself, because I do believe that, you know, even what's it called? Oh, in traditional Chinese medicine, like acupuncture and stuff, they talk about the meridians and how those are energy channels that we have in our body. And so like how does that connect with the chakras, and even like understanding that there's energy centers in our hands and on our feet,
Yeah.
and like, you know what I mean? Like, and so I feel like it's an interesting concept, because I feel like for me personally, in order to be able to teach and kind of teach from like a teacher perspective, because I do teach about that stuff, to
Mm-hmm.
keep it as simple as possible. Because there's also a part, even as I'm saying this, I feel like Archangel Raphael coming in, like,
I was gonna say, I don't know if I'm feeling someone here, like who's coming through. What am
yeah.
I feeling?
Hi, Archangel
Hi,
Raphael.
welcome to this
So
episode.
today we have a guest speaker. His name is Archangel Raphael. He's
That's so
coming through, but I feel him coming in, and like he's saying that there's some level of of knowing that we don't necessarily need to know the complexity of it all, because that is our logical brain trying to understand everything, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just coming from the perspective of, if you know the basics, then as you go through, whether it's your personal healing journey, whether you are, you know, wanting to be a healer and facilitate this kind of work for other people, whatever the case is, but that whatever needs to be known about it will be shown or known to you over time, if that makes sense. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it's kind of the frustrating lesson that I've come to learn doing this work for the last little bit. Yeah, it's just sitting with the energy. You don't have to understand it to benefit from it. So just sitting in an energy is just good enough, and then you'll
Yeah.
know what you need to know when you need to know it. Uh,
Yeah,
it's just really
exactly.
frustrating.
Yeah,
But yes.
I agree with that. I agree with that part. But on a basic level, to explain it, I do like at the very basic of it, I see chakras as these energy centers that hold information, and kind of thinking of it as, okay, I have my crown chakra, third eye, you know, throat, heart, whatever, all that. And each one is responsible for holding certain memories, certain energy. Like if you think about going through life, even, you know, that time period when you're first born to, you know, 3 or 4 years old, when you start to remember stuff. But like even during that time period when we don't remember our childhood, the body still remembers and your energy still remembers. So it's almost like energy stores where you can, if you tap into your chakras, then you can access subconscious memories or energies that can help and support you in your healing. So if let's say, for example, someone went through a traumatic experience when they were 1 and they don't actually remember what happened, but that energy, it's almost like that energy was stored within them. And so later on as an adult, they're doing energy work, they're doing healing work, whatever. And so there can be an experience where, in connection with that chakra, that awareness of, oh, like I'm holding an abandonment wound or I'm holding a whatever wound, can come to the surface to be healed. And it's not because you necessarily remembered what happened when you were 1, but it's because the energy was stored and you can bring through healing in that way.
That's amazing. I've never thought about it like that, that they can, well, energy centers, yes, but that they stored memory.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they support in connection with certain things. So the root chakra is very much an energy center that is related to safety, security, kind of like that foundation, that grounded energy. So if you went through an experience that created a lack of safety, then that memory, so to speak, would be stored more in the root chakra and would need to be restored within the root chakra, not the solar plexus, for example.
Right.
So depending on what each chakra is typically associated with, will give an indication as to what kind of energy memories it might hold.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And how, okay, I guess sitting in the energy is enough.
Yes.
But then if we do want to kind of dive into that whole work, like what's the point to like trying to balance your chakras once a week, or what's the point in trying to like, aren't they like their whole like self functioning
Like,
system, like
yeah, they
why do we,
maintain themselves. It's like,
yeah, they're like there, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what's the maintenance involved in that,
Yeah.
and what's the use of like trying to do that work? And
Like balance.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a really great question. I like to think of it, relating it to just how we think of our regular body, how it functions with our muscles and with our circulatory system and all that, where it's self-sufficient, like it's functioning on its own, right? Like your lungs and everything is breathing by itself. You're not needing to intentionally make yourself breathe. Same with your muscles, but there is a benefit to exercise and physical activity and what you're eating, because then you're either nurturing and nourishing your body to be stronger or to be, able to do whatever activities, like physically, on a physical level,
Yeah.
or not. And so it's the same thing with the chakras, where if we are not energetically maintaining it and doing cleansing practices, or becoming aware of maybe stagnant energy within a certain chakra, then it basically just simply, for lack of a better way of explaining it, can deteriorate our quality of life, so to speak, or also in a sense of like our quality of being able to connect and being able to fully receive energy on some level, because I do believe that as we, all of us on our individual journeys, but also collectively, are on our path of growth and expansion and all that, that part of the bigger divine plan in the rise of consciousness is our ability to hold higher frequency of light and higher frequencies of energy. And so if our main energy systems are not maintained to that level, then it's going to be harder for us to receive that information or those downloads, or to be able to bring through us whatever we're meant to be bringing through us. So, like, does that make sense? So
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
for example, it would be much harder for me to be aware energetically of the angels and like the connection and what I'm able to bring through personally for me, if I wasn't also maintaining my own energy.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, that makes total sense, and you're right. And when we started working with chakras and trying to understand our own energy and feeling into that, and that opens, that channel and that connection with those other energies that are around you, and angels and other things that, you tune into that frequency.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I like to start, something like the healer program, which takes you through the whole process from the basics all the way to the advanced techniques. That's why I like to start with that, because I mean, in a way, when I developed that program, I was really just kind of looking at my own journey and my own development and kind of mirroring it, like, okay, so I started with the basics. That's where it all began for me. And so I think that that's just such an important part of anyone's journey, whether or not you're wanting to be a healer, like regardless of that, but just anyone who's on a spiritual path, it's like it starts with you and your energy and your connection and how you maintain your energy to then be able to hold other things and kind of expand in your connection,
Absolutely. Yes. That makes a lot of sense. And what about those other less known chakras? Are those a thing really, or?
Yeah, I do believe that they are a thing.
Okay.
And again, I feel like depending on everyone's individual path, that might be something that is relevant versus not. Like I've heard people talk about the other chakras, like the soul star chakra and just like these other energy centers that exist. And I feel like it's one of those things where, if you even think about healing modalities and how there's a million ways or a million other different paths towards the same thing. Like you mentioned the other day about your friend and how, she's on a spiritual growth path, but it's different. It's through yoga and like these other experiences. So I think similarly, it's kind of like they exist, they're there. If that's part of your path to understanding and to supporting yourself, then that's great. But if it's not, then that's okay too. I feel like whatever it is for each of us individually, it'll make itself known to us,
Yeah. Breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. All the breadcrumbs. So, yeah.
That's super interesting. Okay. And then how do they help us, like for instance, when it comes to healing and people who work with energy and healing, how come they tap into your chakras to like physically fix something in your like body? Like how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously with the chakras, they are connected to different parts of our body. So the throat chakra, obviously, like anything related to even like what is the glands that are here? Why am I blanking on this?
You're the scientist in the room.
I know, right? Like, what is it called? Why am I blanking on it? I'll think of it later. But whatever the glands are that in your throat, they create a hormone. Why am I blanking on this? I don't know. Whatever. But I'm sure someone listening is like, oh, thyroid. There we go. Thyroid gland. I don't know why I could not think of the word. So,
I was thinking of the word in Spanish and the word, the disease in Spanish. And I was like, wait, what is that? Hypo.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It took me a while to get there. I was doing lots of
different like translations and calculations in your brain.
Yeah, that meme with the
yes.
I was doing this.
Yeah. So, so let's say, for example, thyroid issues, like someone who is having a thyroid issue could look to the throat chakra as a source and connection because it's almost like, think of it like, it's hard to describe. It's almost like think of it as though there's like this layer on top of your body, which is the chakras and the energy system as a whole. And so there's it's like there's a connection point. So all the physical body parts around here are connected to the throat chakra. And then, heart chakra is like the lungs and your heart, like your physical heart, obviously, and things like that. So so I do also feel like when we experience physical illness or health issues, it's usually the last manifestation of something that's going on energetic. Like first it's happening energetic, then emotional, and then it kind of develops. If it's not addressed, it continues on and it'll develop on a physical
level.
which really gets our attention, like
Right.
when things are on a physical level, it really gets our attention. And so going back to your question, it's kind of like, well, if I want to heal my thyroid issue, then let me explore what's within my throat chakra. And so sometimes it's one of those things where, okay, so what happened regarding throat chakra, regarding communication, regarding knowing my truth, regarding being able to speak my truth, like all of that, what is being suppressed on an energetic level that's now being translated on a physical level?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever's creating my respiratory system thing, I need to figure that out. This is really relentless and bringing my attention to something that I haven't figured out. Okay. That's great. And now those are energy centers. And then what is your aura?
So the aura is the energy that surrounds you and that I see it as like holds everything within. So your chakras are within, they're not expanding out like super wide. They're kind of within the width of your body, so to speak. And so the aura is the energy around, and that is where our overall frequency and our essence is expanded into our aura. And so that's why I feel like when you meet someone, or like you were describing with your mom and how she's able to see and read people's energy, to me that is her reading and seeing the essence of a person. And in the aura, there's both the core essence of a soul that does not change, but our aura will also reflect what is going on within our current circumstance or journey. So if someone is going through grief, for example, their aura will reflect that, and you'll feel that in the energy. And so is someone who's reading energy, that person doesn't need to say a word, and they'll pick up from their aura the essence that that person is emitting during that time period of their life, which is going through grief. But it doesn't mean that their soul is this like, grieving energy. It's just that you can understand, oh, okay, that person is grieving right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. And we did this practice where, is it Michael that comes in and helps you? Mm-hmm. Why is he always the one transmuting things and cleaning things and helping you get rid of things, right?
That's a really great question, actually.
That seems to be his thing.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I feel like he's the one because he holds this very kind of like strong and sturdy energy. And so I feel like he has that essence about him that is this kind of like helping to like cut cords or clear energy out or transmute things, because he just has that sturdiness to him. Okay.
He's always fighting something.
Yeah, exactly. He's that warrior. I mean, he's the one who's depicted with the sword. So it's like he has that, just that essence to his energy.
Okay. So whenever there's something that you feel you need to cleanse, or it's not the same. So if you want to cleanse your aura, you can call on Michael to help you with that. When you feel out of balance and you just feel like your energy is off and you want to balance your chakras, do you also call on Michael, or that's a different function?
You can, definitely. I feel like with the balancing, it's a bit more, we'll call it personalized, where it'll be dependent for each person. So this is where everyone can have an opportunity to kind of tune in to which angel they feel more kind of connected to, or who's stepping forward for them during that particular time period. So it might be Archangel Gabriel, it might be Archangel Raphael, it might be Archangel Jophiel who comes in. So that is a bit more personalized, we'll say.
Great. And that leads me to another question, which is also a source of deep frustration on my end. Yeah. How do we know who is coming, who is who, and who is knocking the door?
Yeah.
That is so frustrating. Like, I know you're here, but who are you? Speak to me.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like everyone can relate to that on some.
But who is it?
Who is it? I can feel the energy, but like, who are you? How do I know who you are? There's no one kind of like code of like, okay, every time Archangel Michael comes in, this is how it's going to feel. And every time this Archangel Raphael, this is how it's going to feel. It's very much what is your personal journey and experience, which I know is not very helpful because everyone's like, well, what's my personal key code for this? Like, can you tell me?
Exactly.
And so my suggestion for people who are wanting to develop that and who are kind of like, well, how do I even get started with understanding who is there, is to actually start by working with one particular angel that you are specifically calling on. So let's say you want to work with Archangel Raphael, or you want to kind of get to know that angel, then you call on Archangel Raphael and you begin to observe what is happening around you. So you call on Archangel Raphael, please come forward. And then it's kind of like, well, how am I feeling emotionally? Am I feeling anything physically? Is there like a ticklish thing on my cheek right now? Do I feel vibrations anywhere? Am I seeing a color? So because for some people they see color, and for me personally, that's my number one way that I distinguish who is coming forward, is I see their energy in my mind's eye. I don't see it physically, but I see it in my mind's eye. So, I think when Archangel Raphael was coming forward, it's like I could see his presence, and then it's like a feeling, and then it's a knowing. So it kind of trickles down in these different ways. And so it's becoming familiar with how that comes in for you. And so I always recommend to just start with one, pick one angel. Don't confuse yourself by trying to work with 5 of them at the same time, but instead kind of developing that relationship with one, and then kind of like building off of that.
Okay.
And
knowing that you're not hurting anyone's feelings by picking someone first.
Exactly.
They don't get mad at you. That was the thing that I struggled with a lot, like, and especially because me, again, the Catholic in me is just like, there's a reverence, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to angels, and they're like something, yeah, there's reverence and they're so important, whatever. So you just don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to disrespect anyone. So it's like working with Michael, and that's fine. No one else is getting hurt. They will talk to you when you reach out.
Exactly. They're not going to get mad at you. They're not going to give you the silent treatment or whatever. And yeah, that's such a good point, because I do know that is a thing that people are either conditioned or grew up just exposed to that kind of stuff, and I've had countless comments on my YouTube channel, people being like, you're sinning, you're not supposed to be calling on the angels, and you're not supposed to like do this and that and whatever.
Yeah. But there I bother them with my existence. Like, I can't talk to them. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, who are you? Who do you think you are? Like, you measly human to call on the angels, Right. And I feel like that's just part of elevating and expanding our mind to understand that they are actually here for us. They came here to support us. And so in understanding the connection and how we become aware of them, it's part of our spiritual growth, and it's part of our development. Yeah. And so that's one way to really kind of, get a sense of the presence and the energy. Another way, people use physical tools all the time, like oracle cards and things like that can help you with understanding who's around you and that kind of a thing. But I definitely feel like when we have a more direct, like, instead of calling on any, like, as a general call, like anybody, like, that sort of a thing, anyone, like, please help me or come forward. Instead, it's a more direct, then it kind of establishes a more direct relationship for you to begin to understand what that relationship,
what that feels like.
Exactly.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I'll do that. And then there's the guardian angel connection too. Yes. That, like, I mean, they're closest to you. They know you better than anyone. So even just sitting with that energy and getting familiar.
Yeah.
Is super useful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell people, if anything, start with your guardian angels first, because they are closer to you. And so sometimes it can be a little bit easier for you to sense their presence or sense their energy or become familiar through them. And then once you become familiar through them, you can also use them as kind of like your, like, guide, like if you're feeling a different presence coming forward, you can lean into your guardian angel, be like, who's that? Like, can you give me like some
Tell me
tip?
who is it?
Who is
Yeah.
this? You can kind of start to work with them in that particular way too.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of them will also play hard too.
Yeah. Hard to get.
I have one of
You know
those.
that all too well.
I have one of those that is interesting like that. But yeah, that's super helpful to try and sit with their energy, get familiar, and you'll start to develop, yeah, that personalized kind of language and understanding of who is who. But yeah, with the archangels, I'm still very confused, and I can only, yeah, I think Gabriel is the only one that gives me kind of a
Yeah.
like yeah, there's a consistency there enough at this point that I can tell when it's him. Other than that,
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I feel like that's exactly kind of the process of,
yeah.
okay, great, bro, we got you down. Like I know how you feel. So then over time it'll just expand to other ones,
Yeah.
but then that's also part of the trust and the divine timing and all that great stuff that we love. Yeah.
That's great for chess pieces. It's so funny too when you start talking about them and then they start like letting you feel them a little bit more. Like, yes, we're here. We can hear what you're
Yeah.
talking. We know.
Exactly. I know. I feel like sometimes I just think of an angel and then I feel their presence. Like Archangel Michael, I'm thinking about Archangel Michael right now. I can feel his energy. Like I feel like it's so, if you think of it, thought and how thought appears in the spiritual realm and the ethereal realm. Like
Mm-hmm.
before I can even speak the words Archangel Michael, like he already knows. And it's the same thing I feel like when you're setting intentions or when you're
Oh,
wanting to pray or whatever, it's like your thought of the knowing is already out there. Like you speaking the prayer or the intention is slower than your mind already having had that thought. So
right.
they're already responding to your thought, not necessarily your words. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. When you were saying like that, when you were just saying that we call them and we feel them, and I was joking with one of my archangels, like not everyone is so good at doing that. Like something like I was just joking with him, and then I immediately felt something here, and I'm like, okay, point taken.
That's so
Point
funny. I
taken.
love
So
that.
yeah, even just that and practice
Yeah.
that internal dialogue and just having open communication will develop that naturally and you'll start to feel them and
Yeah.
they actually respond. I remember when I just started feeling my guardian angels, I thought it was the one angel,
Hmm.
but I was just trying to figure it out because I've always been so scared and you never know what's going to come through. And
Right.
so I was like, but who are you? Are you a guide? Are you my guardian angel?
Mhm.
And then whenever I said guardian angel, I felt like a touch.
Oh, I
And
love
so,
that.
like, yes, that's it. Right. And so, and whenever I call on, I used to think it was a he and I had a name for him. So I used to call on him and then I would immediately feel a touch here or a touch here. And so I started, but yeah, you're right. As soon as you think about it, immediately translates into some sort of confirmation. Or
Yes.
you'll see a feather, or
Yeah.
I would like feel the wind would rustle like some leaves, and that would caught my attention. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just different things and different subtle ways in which they give you a confirmation, and they'll let you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. You're right. You're onto the right thing.
Exactly, exactly. And this is coming through it now. So I'll just bring it all in because I feel like this ties so perfectly with what we were talking about with the chakras and our energy and maintaining that. And what they're saying right now is that when we do not take care of ourselves energetically, it's almost like we numb ourselves, or like it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's like that. Yeah, like I guess numbing is the best way to describe it, to the sensitivity to that kind of stuff. So that's another reason why, like you asked earlier, of like, well, what's the point of, kind of maintaining and balancing our energies and things like that, is that it also helps us open up and be in a more free flowing state of energy in order to be sensitive enough to the cues that they give us to let us know that they're around, or, confirmation or whatever. So that is directly tied. Like, the more that we maintain our energy, is really about looking at it as like a free flowing system. And so if I have stagnant energy in any of my chakras or in my aura, then energy cannot flow freely. And if energy cannot flow freely, then it's going to be harder for me to receive. And so if I'm wanting to receive messages or guidance or even just a sign, it's much harder because my awareness is now much more blocked.
I totally get what you mean. And the funny thing, though, is that the more we need it, the less we do it.
Yeah.
So
I know.
The sicker you are, the sadder you are, all of those things. Funny enough, when you need that connection the most is when you're more numb, because you're just locked into your own little storm of whatever is happening, and you just don't tune in.
Yeah, totally.
And it's so hard.
Yep.
But again, it doesn't have to necessarily be sitting down in meditation for an hour balancing your chakras. It can be as simple as calling on them, talking to them, and just keeping the channel open so that through.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like even in those moments when things feel extra hard, you're extra in the emotional state and experience of whatever it is, whether it's sadness or fear or anxiety or whatever it is that, like, just please come in and support me right now. Like, I don't have the strength or mental capacity to even try and like balance my chakras or do this thing or do whatever, but just to put enough of that energy towards, I'm calling on you guys to come in and please support me. You know what I mean? Or help me clear this, or help me to understand what I need to understand from the situation, or whatever the prayer is. But just that. And as long as we can have enough strength to just, like, almost like fishing, you put the line out and they will immediately take the line and they'll immediately come in, even if we don't feel it necessarily right away. Because again, it's important to remember that their answer to your prayer isn't always going to be, oh, let me make you feel better right now. Like instant, like, oh, I don't feel afraid anymore.
Let me heal you right now.
It's not always like that, because they understand that we are on our individual journeys, and they would never take our power away by, as much as our human brain is like, well,
I was going to say, like, no, take it away. Exactly. I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't need this. Like, I'm good. I don't need to go through this. But, like, they understand the bigger picture. So they would never do that, as much as our ego would want that to happen.
Please.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But I'm always like, and that's kind of the analogy that I go with, like, in my mind. I'm like, I feel like I'm just blind and just dumb and deaf, or like all the things. I'm just trying to navigate something that I don't even understand. Just you can see, you just show me the way, and I'll try to go there. So frustrating, even against our own, like, human wishes. We're like, just the lottery. That's all I need. Just one ticket. One ticket. I don't even need the big one. Just a small one would do. But they just, nope, that's not what you need. That's not what you came for. And you just don't get it.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's so, I was just talking to a client recently, and we were both like, like, why do we, like, sometimes just being on a path of like, why did I choose this? Like, why does it have to be like this? Why does it have to be this hard? Like, come on, give me a break.
I know. And the funny thing, though, is, and I've thought about this a lot, and the card that keeps coming out from the deck is like, trust the unfolding. I'm like, if I see you one more time, I can't. I don't, clearly. That's why we're here.
That's so funny.
But that's the message I've been getting. So this really is speaking to me right now. But the few moments when you manage to tap into that higher perspective, also, all things considered, the fact that we're here at this point in time, just like with kids, like, you have different challenges as time goes by, and then sometimes it's more physical, sometimes it's more emotional. But I think being a human before this time must have been so physically hard. No
Yeah.
sanitation, no like services, like no comforts of any kind, and it must have been so
Right.
awful to be here
Yeah.
before modern times.
Yeah.
And now it's so emotionally exhausting and stressful in different
Right.
ways, and just traumatizing
Yeah.
in different ways. But it's just it feels like, it's funny when you think about it as a human development and as a person growing up. Also feels like as earth and history and things evolve, we've
Yeah.
also kind of shifted from a more primal, physical, painful experience into more
Yeah.
mentally
Yeah.
stressful, exhausting kind of existences, which is really
Totally.
weird.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but it's so true of like seeing that shift, which to me also is a good thing because it's just showing that we are also evolving consciously, on
Yeah.
a conscious level. So, and I have seen that where I feel like if you look at just on a global level, how it seems like spirituality is more prominent these days than, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where you probably can find books on all the different topics
Oh my God.
more
Yeah.
so these
That wasn't even
days.
a thing a few years
Right.
ago, like in this
Exactly.
lifetime. That is just, you
Exactly.
know,
So to me, that is showing how we are quickly evolving, even like and maybe that's actually the transition where it was like physical, and then it's like mental and emotional, and now we're shifting it even into more of the
into
spiritual
spiritual.
kind of challenges or whatever you want to
I
call
know.
it.
I know. I try to tell myself that whenever I'm like, bad, why did I choose this? And why is this so hard? And I'm like, on, all things considered, you chose to come here at a time when you had running water
Yeah.
and a toilet. You're doing great.
Yeah.
You are doing great.
So true. Yes, exactly. We're
You
not
have
out
a
foraging
car,
berries and like needing to,
eat.
yeah.
You're doing great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the time that we're living in, I think, is truly really revolutionary. I mean, I feel like it's going to go down in history as one of the craziest times
Yeah.
in our human history. We're literally living through it with, internet and AI now, and just
God, yeah.
everything is just really shifting and changing. And I've been saying this for a long time now, but I really truly feel that everyone who's here at this time is like chose this particular time for a
Yeah.
reason to usher in whatever the new era is, whatever the new age
Earth, yeah.
is for Earth. Yeah.
What's
I
coming
truly
next? You're
believe that.
absolutely right. It does feel like that. It's just never before things have changed so much, so fast
Yeah.
for a generation, like in our lifetime, like people that were born without electricity and logs and it's just thing are all of a sudden in the age of AI and automation. And
Yeah.
this is just very weird. And when you think about our history, that's just never happened before. And
Yeah.
we're coping coping with it as well as we can, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
just having access to so much information, it's such a privilege. And the fact that just a few years ago and growing up in the 80s, and especially somewhere else in the world where this is just was just not a thing, and you were just
Yeah.
going, to the esoteric shop to find, whatever book you can find, and that's it. That's all
Yeah.
that I can read, and I guess I'll
Exactly.
learn about this or that. But the privilege that you can just open up an app and have access to the world's information, and you can learn about anything and everything, is just amazing. So in terms of spiritual development and what that's going to mean for
Yeah.
us if we choose to use it for something productive,
Yeah. Yeah.
not dancing on TikTok, this can be productive and relaxing maybe. um
Yeah.
yeah, it can be exponential spiritual growth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1,000%, because now it's like we can reach people all over the world and
Yeah.
connect all over the world. I've had Zoom calls with clients who are in Australia, and it's like you're on the other
Yeah.
side of the world and I can talk to you. Whereas
Yeah.
before, it's like that would have never happened.
the fact that we found each other is like, without technology and Google, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
that is amazing. And then, yeah, I guess before you would have had to go on an actual physical quest and travel for
Right.
many, many years to go to a foreign land, and then maybe finding your
Yeah.
guru or whatever. So yeah, it's such a privilege to be here and even to have access to all of this. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't even imagine the next generation of kids who
they're gonna be able
are
to.
growing up in this. I mean, I see my daughter now who's
Oh,
like pretends to be on a phone and she's
yeah,
like holding her hand up, like the old school way
yeah.
where we
No,
would do
it's
like the thumb and the pinky. It's like, no, she's like on this and she's like, okay, pretend that I'm on my phone. And like she's like doing this whole thing. Or, I order groceries like through the app on my phone. And so she'll be like, pretend that I'm ordering groceries and tell me what you want. And she's like doing this thing. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God. A
This is such
few
a
years
different
ago, this
world.
was not even, yeah, a
Yeah.
thing. It's amazing. That's why it's wild to me that we've come so far
Yeah.
in our lifetime. It's amazing. Yeah, my daughter, I saw that as a baby, and she was, instead of flipping through a book, she was touching the page like,
Oh my God.
I was like, oh no. She definitely lives in a different world. She didn't even try
Yeah.
to flip the page.
Oh
She
my
was
God.
just doing
Yeah.
this.
Kind of swipe it.
Oh, okay, this
That's
is your
so
world, and
funny.
I guess that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like we can't stop that from happening, even though it feels so weird
Yeah,
knowing that we grew up in such a different time that wasn't the thing,
it wasn't a
know?
thing. I bet. I mean,
But
there's cameras that can supposedly take pictures of your aura and your chakras and things like that.
whoa.
Guessing,
Yeah.
what if we come up with that and we can just go into a machine and just, okay, fix my chakras, and I'll just
Right. Yeah. Oh
do
my
it.
gosh. I wonder if there's something like that. I don't know. But I visited Sedona in Arizona a few years ago. I think it was 2018, and there was a chakra and aura like reading like a picture
Yeah,
thing.
at the
And
mall. Yeah,
so
I've seen
yeah.
them.
And you can like get your aura picture taken and then the woman like says stuff about you and it's like, oh, like whatever.
Wow.
And I remember at that time she had told me about one of my ancestors was coming through because she could see the ancestor's energy so
Wow.
strong. It was like this grandmother like figure, like a great grandmother,
Hmm.
and it was just really interesting because I'd never experienced something like that before and to actually see the picture and like see this like yellow, like she was coming in like this yellow gold-ish
Wow.
energy, which was super cool.
Super cool to actually see and to have an actual machine, physical,
Yeah.
that can just see that. It's amazing. And of course, amazing confirmation for someone who innately does that without the machine.
Exactly.
So, but that's something that I've discussed a number of times, when it's like, well, if you have to actually have the ability to do that without the deck or without the
Mhm.
camera or without, like, it's all in you and you can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So if you're an actual, whatever, channel healer, whatever, anyone
Yeah.
can do that, and this is just an instrument, and it's a facilitator, but you don't actually need anything to
Exactly.
be able to do that. And it's important to understand that you can use the tools and they're helpful sometimes, but it's also something that's very much within you, and you don't
Yes.
need the tools all the
Mhm.
time.
Exactly. And that's how you're going to develop that level of trust with yourself because you're not relying on a tool. And it's like the fine balance. Like it's fine to use a tool and it's fun to do it, but
Right.
also you need to develop that level of trust and confidence within yourself first and foremost.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah,
If you don't practice, you don't get any better.
exactly. I want to hear from everyone in the comments below, especially if you're watching on YouTube. What was the biggest thing that stood out to you from today's episode regarding chakras and aura? How do you feel them? How do you feel the presence of angels and energies coming through for you? Let us know. Post it in the comments. Let us know if you have any questions. There's always can always be a part 2 to these kinds of things, because there's always more to explore. And your reviews and shares are always so, so helpful. So if you found this episode to be helpful, please feel free to share that with your friends, your family, your community. Post a review, all that good stuff. We truly love and appreciate every single one. And I think that's pretty much it. Is that
That's
it?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sit down, practice tonight before bed. If you're waking up, listening in the morning, just take a minute, sit down, breathe, and try and
Yeah.
feel your energy just for a few seconds. Talk to your guardian angel today. Say hi.
Yes. Say hi. That's the
Say hi.
say hi.
That's all it takes.
Exactly.
You're opening the door. You never know what you're
Yes.
doing.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, that is it for our episode today. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. As always, we are sending you so much love and angel blessings, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.